Slept on the floor last night.
Why?
Someone soaked my mattress in piss.
Don't say anything. You know they'd make it even worse.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Little Black Book. You already know what time it is, baby. Are you mad? Are you mad? Are you lean? Listen, if you're new to the channel, click on that like, share, subscribe button, and click on that bell button for notification of the what? Upload, baby. And for those of you returnees, you ain't got the minerals. Listen, mineral gang. It's the mineral gang, okay? Mineral gang. You ain't got the minerals, baby. Alright, listen, I'm going to give you guys episode 2 of this lovely show we got going on called Noughts and Crosses. If you haven't seen episode 1 review, go and watch that as well. But we're going to watch episode 2 now. I'm just going to give you my kind of 3 key themes that I've been running through this episode. For me, I saw freedom of speech is not free for those who are in discrimination. There's a conformity that must happen to fit the standard. That love, there is forbidden types of love within a society that has set up itself in a hierarchical fashion and preserving the status quo. Okay, first thing that we see, I believe in the first opening scene is very, very important because we see Sephy challenging her father in his inaugural speech when there was a conversation that was had in the house about the rights of being able to speak freely.
Going ahead with all the protests.
It's just people exercising their right to speak freely.
But when Noughts tries to exercise that right, the riot police show up.
Oh, is this what we have to expect now that you're going to be studying politics?
And Sephy obviously being at the vigil last night, still a bit heated, still feeling a bit of the energy, still feeling a bit pumped. Disagrees with her father and says obviously, but how about the infringement on the rights of those of Noughts? Those are white people at the time. And he says obviously it's not the same kind of thing. And she says, how can it not be the same kind of thing? And I think this is very interesting because when you're in a place of privilege, you fail to understand that your right of freedom is different from someone else who's discriminated against. It's the exact same thing with men. When men have a right of freedom, when women begin to speak up, we have a disdain for them and we look at them in a certain way. Why? Privilege. And your privilege is a power and a responsibility that you need to wield correctly. And when you're failing to understand a person's perspective because you feel you're better than them and you feel that you have more power than them, then you've missed exactly why you've been put into that place of privilege. Do you understand? And I gave that example last time. I said where Jesus Christ was in heaven, he was God himself and he was the totality. But yet he chose to come down and be in the same form as us to die a shameful death. Why? Because his whole motto was that though I am privileged, I'm coming to serve. And so this is why I'm banging on this point again. I want you to understand your place of privilege, men, white people, is to be in a place of power, but to use it responsibly. When you see the injustice, to help bring a balance to that. So there is justice. And it's because people keep quiet who are in place of power that a lot of injustice goes by. And so we see here with Sephy kind of speaking up and becoming an advocate slowly but surely for the Noughts, that she wants to bring an equilibrium, you know, in that thought. And again, I want to emphasize it is a black woman doing so, not a black male, a black woman doing so. Why is that important? Because the importance of the black female in this society has been reduced to naught. You know, we see how there's such an attack, even from their own kind, is an attack on their women. And so what we're seeing is this almost self-hatred for their women from black males sometimes, a lot of times even. And that is as a result directly of being strategically lambasted, raped, forced to go against the women of their family in slave trade times, that we see this manifesting in this subtle unconscious biasm of hate against black women from black men. And so we know that this is born out of conditioning. And so the same thing here, we're talking about the freedom of choice here. There isn't much of freedom of conversation because you yourself, if you're discriminated against, don't have much of a voice. Therefore, you can't be heard, and therefore change doesn't want to happen. What I wanted to kind of point out was two very, very important themes that I think were so key. The dress code, yeah? Whenever you see the family, you see them in their you know, their glorious African attire, very nice dresses, very nice clothes, but they're all African inspired. And this is what we're saying about media representation. Now, just this show alone, a person who's never encountered African attire and clothing in this particular form has to have a different viewpoint on African clothing. Oh, there's a royal type of clothing. Oh, suits are not always the only kind of, you know, formal attire you can wear. Like, Africans have their own. Yes, we have our own. And you know, it was interesting because obviously we see that obviously Ryan, the father of Callum and the husband of Maggie as well, you know, when they were going to the actual inaugural speech, you know, he put on a very nice shirt, and the very nice shirt was an African printed type shirt. And so it's interesting again about even that, again, the representation, the formality, the conformity to those who are in power and the way they do things. What was interesting again was also their hairstyle. So, you know, Callum went into the army and his hairstyle instantly changed. It was no longer reserved. He had now put it up, you know, almost in the same style that Lacan and the rest of the African males and women had their hair up. And we see this conformity. And this is what we're saying when we say to white people that hair is political, they don't understand. Hair is a political statement. If Callum himself has to change his hair for the military, lets you see that there's a form of conformity that needs to happen in order to be accepted. The girl next to him, what's her name? Gianni, or I can't remember her name was. Elaine, I think it was. She also had her hair plaited as well. And so you see this conformity that needs to happen because that is the status quo, right? And if the status quo is racist itself, then what happens is that hairpiece becomes a political statement. You can't wear your hair long because now we have to make sure that you fit the society's rules. Do you get me? And so that was a very important point. And I saw that and I said, wow. I said, when black women say about their hair is political in the workplace, when we talk about boys in school and girls in school being kicked out because they've got braids or they've got long hair, and it's like, why are you punishing us for something that's natural to us? And we see, again, we don't see that in the actual show of Noughts and Crosses, but what we are seeing is this reversal now. Oh, you got to conform now. Your hair's got to be a certain way. Do you feel me? Your hair's got to be a certain style. And so we're introduced to that. And obviously we're pushed into this next kind of scene where Callum is talking to, I think it's Elaine, and they're talking about last night. And he says, obviously, someone pissed on my bed, you know, had to sleep on the floor, rah, rah, rah. And Elaine says something which is so key, which happens to black people all the time when it comes to racism. She's like, oh my God, like, you know what, you just got to keep quiet. Now, see this keep quiet, yeah? That's what they were doing to us during the slavery period. You just got to deal with it. You just got to handle it. Because they will kill you, they will chop off your foot, they will have sex with your wife, they will rape you, they will do all sorts of things. They will do all these things to you because at the end of the day, they have control. You know, and it's astonishing because, you know, he's literally in a place where he should be considered equal because he's able to do what they're doing. He's as strong as they are, which is even interesting. And yet they are still doing things to make him leave because the whole thing is that they want him to.
Someone soaked my mattress in piss.
Don't say anything. You know they'd make it even worse.
Leave. They want him to exit. So they're doing everything to break him. And this is what they did to black people in the beginning. You know, until we started saying, look, we're going to do this. You're going to find me here. I'm going to complete this. You know, the speech that was given, you know, I noticed some microaggressions in there. You know, he said, obviously, you know, it's important that both the Noughts and Crosses keep their identity, yeah? And because there's strength in difference. Now, the tonality of the strength in difference and the keeping our identities was actually, again, a form of passive aggressiveness.
I urge you, Crosses and Noughts alike, to protect your identity.
To showcase again this racist divide and to show again where he stood, that he does not rate Noughts being involved. He does not rate Noughts, you know, and someone might take it another way, but it's because if you read into it better and read into it deeply into context, you'll realize that this guy does not like Noughts. He does not like white people. The black person does not like white people here. And that's exactly what we see in news. When your whole Boris Johnson can say letterbox and agree with certain articles that say black people are not smart, etc., then that is exactly what he just said on that pulpit. That's exactly what just got done. And so we see that anonymity and that strife and that need to push down the Noughts gets made very clear to Ryan, who's the father of Callum, once again, that there's a difference between us two. And we see that later on when we see Ryan, who's just standing there, and people come and he's trying to get a drink, and everyone thinks he's the house help. How many times in black people does it happen to you? You're in a shop or something like that, and they think you're part of the shop help. Or you're in a party, a nice party like that, and they would think that you're part of the bartending and you're part of the waiting staff. Why? Because that's what they're used to. They're not used to black people thriving. They're used to black people being outside of their homes as slaves. And so the same thing with Ryan, the same discrimination they're using it here as well.
But there is strength in difference.
And there were several microaggressions that were happening. This is very important, man. When we say microaggressions, what we're saying is here, there are micro-racist comments that are happening that aren't overt, but once you pick them up on them, you will know exactly what it is. One of the first began was with the way they described the Nought woman, saying they're sexual and they're crazy and they're buck wild. This was done on the bench, right, when they were talking before they got dismissed. And there was a point about how crazy sexual they are and all this. Again, just kind of making them into animals and not human beings. Just belittling them down to just sexual objects, right? And this is what they do to black people when they call us mandingos. We've got long dicks. Our sex is crazy. I just want to be with a black man because I want to get a good pipe in, or I want to have mixed race babies. All this stuff is the microaggressions we're talking about that we're seeing here with Noughts and Crosses when they describe this woman as a sexual object. And then later on, Lacan at the pool says to his missus at the time, says,
"You should be careful, babe. It's one thing me seeing you with that Nought, but anyone else doesn't look good, does it?"
Look, it's not good you and Callum being seen together. Like, it's fine, I saw you guys and that's not a problem, but other people out there might talk. And it's like, why would they talk? And it's because of, again, the colour situation, right? Which later on we see in the episode when he's looking on the internet and seeing a news article about someone who got arrested, I think, for having an interracial relationship. So we can see that there's a lot of premise and a lot of discrimination when it comes to the dating phase between two different races because of the history behind it. And so when we see that interchange with Lacan and Sephy at the pool, he's basically saying, listen, stay away from him because people talk and you don't want people talking simply just because. Why are they going to talk? Because he's a different colour, not because of anything else. Different colour and different class, that's it. He's a nobody.
Lacan.
Lacan?
Yeah. What?
And then obviously the fate in situation where Sephy's lying to her parent, lying to her mum, lying to Maggie, even though Maggie heard her over the phone saying that she wasn't going to see Lacan, and she ends up going to see Lacan. She ends up using Lacan as an alibi when she's not going to be going anywhere apart from seeing Callum. It was interesting because Callum obviously was looking on the internet for a place for them to go, and they were going to choose the most roughest neighbourhood around, do you understand? Just so they can get some peace and quiet, right? And what was interesting is that obviously they were going to go to a bar where there was another interracial couple in there as well. So it's almost like this is the only safe place where interracial people can actually, stay. Do you get me? So now, obviously, Lacan actually comes to Callum's house. And this, again, we're going to see another abuse of power. First of all, why is he coming to the house? You know what I'm saying? Pretend that he wants a drink. He doesn't really. And then he says, obviously, about the fact that, you know what?
Every time I see you, there she is too.
Right. It's been twice.
Don't go to date me, cadet. I'm the superior officer. It's every time.
It's obviously that he sees Callum and his missus every time he sees his missus, he sees Callum rare. And Callum has to put him straight, like, yo, my G, nah, brother, man's not around your missus like that, rude boy. Like, at the end of the day, fam, man's only been around her 2 times. And Lacan says, listen, if I say it's every time, it is every time, cadet. Do you understand? So this abuse of power, not racial, but it's abuse of power in terms of your position, and then he makes a joke and says, I'm only kidding, da, da, da. He's not kidding. I mean, absolutely real. But this is what we call intimidation. right? And these are the kind of things that happen to us on a daily. Yo, this intimidation that happens, bro. And to see that, obviously, that Lacan went after, you know, his missus and Callum at the hotel was very interesting, because obviously he found one of his people there at the hotel. It was Elaine and Barnaby. Come on. Right, and he's busting out the door and ends up beating up, you know, his cohort that's there, right? Because he's looking for Sephy and Callum, and that's what I'm talking about. These are the kind of things where he's gonna get away with it. He's broken into a bar, everything like that. Where is the justice? Where is the retribution for this behavior? There won't be one, because it'll be covered up and it'll be squared. Do you understand? Because his color of skin allows him to do so.
I believe there's something of an overlap in our ambitions.
The powers at top B do. They organize, orchestrate, and execute things like this to happen so that they can stay in the position of power. And so when we see later on when Sephy goes to speak to Lacan, you know, she says, "I don't love you no more," and he says, "Listen, what's that got to do with anything? We're here for the continuity." And this is where it becomes dangerous. It's all about power, status, and keeping control, and keeping blacks on top. Also, I should say crosses on top rather than noughts. And so what we see is that, boom, okay. So now he's saying it's not about the love. It's just about the continuity. It's all about making sure that blacks stay on top, crosses stay on top, and the whites stay underneath. Which is so interesting, because that's how power works. Forget race, we've got to make sure that we as a people stay on top. Can't mix and mingle, can't be homogeneous. I think that was said at the inauguration as well. Obviously, Callum's dad lost his job for trying to cover for Daniel's dad for the funeral, and he lost his job. And it's like, when you do the right thing, you lose your job. When you do the right thing for a fellow individual who's been abused, you can lose your job, you can lose your livelihood, you can lose you. Do you understand? It's got to be making sure that, you know, these things situations, and this is what black people face on a day-to-day basis. We rise up, we stand up, and then we lose our jobs, or we lose some form of income, or we lose something that's going to help us be able to sustain our lives. And then people will say, "Oh, why didn't you say anything?" It's because when we do, we get shut down. And I think the final thing that was happening was the end scene where Elaine obviously was walking in to the barracks, and everybody like stomped their feet, you know, to kind of show that they were not embarrassed, but they were just they were making a point to her, you understand? And she was about to leave, but what was interesting about the fact that she was going to leave is that her man who she had sex with, Barnaby, you know, I think she expected him to stand up for her, but he didn't. He joined in with the feet stomping instead of actually joining in with her. Even though he had a long ass glass at her, but he realized, you know, he had to conform. And this is where racism really does its damage. When you know, you expect something to happen, but it doesn't come to pass because at the end of the day the person got swayed by certain circumstances. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's a big thing. So for me, yeah. For me, it's interesting. I think. I think the show is growing on me now, and really trying to explain some different things that happen to black people all the time. So yeah, if you like what we do, make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of the uploads, baby.